Chimpum.
Muy buenas preguntas también, tú, tío. Muy buenas, de verdad.
You do speak fast.
Muy buenas, compañeros de juego, bienvenidos a una nueva edición de Fase de Mantenimiento. Estamos aquí en Meeplefactory ficción Granada Gaming Festival, una presencia maravillosa. Tenemos hoy el honor de tener con nosotros a Colbert, al autor del root, que viene a hablarnos de toda su trayectoria, de su historia, y la verdad, vamos un poco contrarreloj, ¿vale? El Adia me está mirando mal desde ahí, desde la esquinita, pero me está haciendo señas de que corra, ¿vale? Así que nada, empezamos. Ah, que puede tranquilo, ¿no? Vale. Pues nada, empezamos de nuevo. Muy buena. Cole,
Yes,
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
First of all, your surname, Wehrle, how do you spell it? How do you pronounce it?
It's not my fault, right? We're giving these names. It's pronounced Wehrle, but I can't blame anyone because they just made that pronunciation up. No one actually pronounces it that, except people in the Midwest.
Okay. It's the same problem that they have. For instance, me and my father had the same name, Manuel Cervantes Morales, the first name and the two surnames. So I couldn't define myself. I was too little when I was born. First of all, first time here in Spain?
Yes.
So, what do you think about this place? What do you think about Granada, about Spain, about Andalusia?
Well, Granada seems very nice. I've been able to go on runs in the morning and just enjoy the mountains and the air. It's gorgeous here. There aren't, in Minnesota, the trees don't even have green leaves yet, let alone oranges.
Okay. Oh my. Is Minnesota nice?
It's very nice.
Should I go?
Yes.
Really?
In the summer.
Well, you don't want to come here in the winter.
Yeah.
Trust me. Everything is snowy.
Oh, really?
Even in the mountain, yeah. We have a place called Sierra Nevada. Snowy Sierra. Sono es. Bueno, snowy mountains. Well, your first game was in 2015, was the first edition of Pax Pamir.
Yes.
And the game is about the Afghan Empire in the 19th century, who tries to defeat the Durrani Imperium. What happened? Why? The question is why.
Yeah, why? So I was a graduate student, and when you are in graduate school, you learn a lot about things that no one else knows anything about. It's just the nature of working and doing research. And I found myself so compelled by the subject of Afghanistan in the 1820s and 30s because at that time, I grew up after 9/11 and was thinking a lot about nation building and globalization and what it meant to enact empire in the 21st century. And then as I started reading earlier and earlier, I found that those questions were hundreds and hundreds of years old, of course. And so, to me, it was this amazing period where you got to see a modern state emerge. I mean, one thing about that game, it's fundamentally about how Afghanistan became Afghanistan, which is to say how a country became a country. And that was happening all around the world in the 1820s, not just in Central Asia.
So I suppose that in that place, the first thing was the theme.
Yeah.
A little the mechanics. What kind of games did you play at the time?
Well, it's funny. Pax Pamir came from a mechanical desire too, because
Uno, Munchkin.
Yeah. Well, oddly enough, I was playing a lot of Race for the Galaxy, and I love race. But in a lot of card games, a lot of engine builders, the longer we play, the more self-sufficient we become, because we build technologies and we don't really need the other players. And I wanted to build a card game that the longer players played, the more bound together they became, as opposed to going the other way.
Do you still play those kind of games? For instance, Race for the Galaxy from Tom Lehman. Do you play, for instance, Res Arcana or these kind of games? Do you still play those games?
Yes, a lot. I've probably played 100 games of Res Arcana. It's a very remarkable game. It's almost a joke though, because it has so few cards.
Yep.
I felt like someone dared Tom Lehman. How small can you make an engine builder that's still interesting? Sure.
I think it's his best design.
Yeah.
Res Arcana, because you only have to play 8 cards and you have this, you have 2 expansions. It's a lovely game, but we're not here to talk about Tom Lehman. He can come here next year. So, what other games do you play actually on these days?
I play all sorts of games. When really everything from Castles of Burgundy to Blood on the Clock Tower to I played a game of Virgin Queen last weekend. So
really?
From the very short.
It's a filler. Yeah, trust me. Oh my.
When I meet with other designers, I find that we love sharing games, but usually strange games. So I played a game recently called Gibberers, where players,
Which one?
It's called Gibberish.
Gibberish. No idea.
See, exactly.
No idea.
None of these games are great, but they're all interesting. In this game, you design a Stone Age language, like fire, cold, very simple words.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's a cooperative game where you have to describe concepts of increasing complexity by using the words that you've been designing. And so, we'll pick a word for stone and maybe a word for loud. And if I say loud stone, maybe I mean a drum, and then we'll make a word for drum. And by the end of the game, we have to say things like medical insurance.
Coming from the stone, okay.
Yeah.
It's like
it's brilliant. It takes 3 hours.
yeah, history comes to life. Yeah.
But it's a 3 hour party game.
3 hour party game.
So it doesn't.
What do you mean by party game?
Well, I like a long party.
Okay. No. Oh my. Do you play regular war games?
Yes.
Normal war games? Because it's funny, but many people say that Root is a war game.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a normal regular war game. What do you think? It's a regular war game? It's a rough war game? It's a tiny, easy war game?
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
I think Root was inspired by a lot of war games, and in war games, there's a problem with multilateral conflicts because they're very hard to make a war game about because the victory conditions usually don't work. They tend to be too long. And so Root was very dialed into what makes a so I was playing a lot of successors when I was working on Root and just thinking about what does it mean to play a four, and Andy and Abyss is the other like key inspiration, a coin game. But usually when people use the word war game, they mean historical simulation, and Root doesn't really have a model for a specific conflict period. The war element of Root is very secondary to the geopolitical.
Mm-hmm. One of the funny things of Root is that it's not only a tabletop game. You know that there is a tabletop RPG game. I am a real lover of RPG games. I'm a game master. Do you know anything about the RPG? Do you have something to do with it? Have you played to the RPG game?
So I have played it. The RPG came about because Patrick Leader, the owner of Leader Games, loves RPGs. He's a huge RPG fan, and he lobbied very hard for us to find a partner. And I really liked the strategy, which was to not make it a Dungeons and Dragons game. He wanted to find a company that wanted to adapt a system, especially for the game. And it's done really well. I've played it, and I have a minimum involvement. I basically make sure that they don't write anything that would contradict things that we had written. So I do quality assurance, but really that's it. It is all the work of Magpie.
Here in Spain, realized that the publisher is not a specialized D&D publisher. So it's specialized on Cthulhu games, on horror games. And it's really funny, as you can see, the horror games of the Call of Cthulhu, and next to it, the Root game. It's quite funny. Preparing this interview a couple of months ago, I read on the Reddit thread that you are a real defender of the kings-making mechanics. The question is again, why?
So the idea that games should be won by the best player is a little bit of a strange idea. It's very modern. Mm-hmm. And it comes from this notion of fairness, right? We want the game to evaluate our skill, and then the best Res Arcana player is going to win. Now, that's fine, especially if you're taking a standardized test. It's fine. I want, the person who's best to get the scholarship. Yep. But games are also engines of storytelling, and fairness is anathema to storytelling. Fairness doesn't have anything to do with good storytelling. And in fact, moments of unfairness can create the most essential and the greatest stories that we've ever told.
It's funny because I read it, the whole thread, and many people said that, no, it's not normal that he says that the king's making is in his game. Okay, it's an asymmetrical game. King's making in a symmetrical game is not the same that in symmetrical game. So I think that there is no point there. It's totally different discussions. But
any game that is interactive will have king making.
Of course.
It depends on the character of the players.
Yeah, sure. Totally. Yeah. Totally. The first edition of Young Company was in 2016. There is another edition, a second edition. Will there be any second edition of any other Cold Wehrle games?
So certainly in Infamous Traffic, we'll get a second edition at some point. This is the game I did about the Opium Wars. My first 3 historical games were made at a very tricky period of my life, and they were built under a lot of constraints. And so now that I have a lot more familiarity and I am able to fund proper productions of these games, I've wanted to revisit them. But I don't have any desire to make, a second edition of Root or anything like that. I think it really is unique to those first 3 historical games, and I've done Pamir and I've done John Company, and so there's just one left.
Mm-hmm. How old were you when designing the first edition of Pax Pamir?
How old was I? I was 26, 27.
26. What would you say to the 26 Wehrle nowadays?
Oh, gosh.
I got you.
Yeah, oh no. I designed those early games when I was in graduate school, and I think gosh, I have so much to tell that person. I think graduate school, especially in the United States, is a site of trauma for many people. People, they make it out alive is how they usually frame it. I had a very good time, but working on those games, it was very difficult because I was kind of juggling 2 jobs. We just had a kid, and I think with something like Pamir, I wish I would have spent a little bit more time not rushing and allowed myself to work a little bit longer. And that's really what the second edition was. It was just what happens if you do another 6 months of work on a game that you thought was done, and you get a second edition.
Do you miss anything about that Wehrle?
Yeah, I didn't worry about my audience at all, which is a good and a bad thing. I say so.
Well, it depends.
Well, I say sometimes that there's a temptation when you design a lot to only design for yourself. That's certainly true for me. I'm designing games I want to play, but the audience is a really important part of the conversation. You have to be responding to them and interacting with them, but in a way that doesn't compromise your own vision. When my first games, I had no idea who was going to play them, which meant that they were both freer and more creative in some respects. But we're also significantly less good. And so, the audience is an important part of that equation.
It's funny that you say that you don't take account about what the people say about the games. Because, for instance, I've seen it a while ago. Molly House, one of your forthcoming games, it's not released yet in every way, in every places. And it has a lot of lovers and a lot of haters. No. How do you point one for a game you don't even have played yet?
Well, speaking frankly, some of the haters are bigots, and I don't mind saying that because that's how they describe their own comments. And I think if someone doesn't want to play a game because they morally object to the foundation of the game's theme, that is a choice that they make that I can't do anything about. Mm-hmm. But Molly House, so Molly House and Arcs were made about at the same time. Yep. And both engage very earnestly with risk and uncertainty. The reason I'm doing this is because if you play a traditional card game, I was in Germany last year. I was playing a lot of Skat, just an old German trick taker, and trick takers have so much uncertainty and so many classic games that have been around for 100 years or more, 200, 500 years. They really engage with uncertainty. But I think something has happened in modern games where we've boiled out a lot of that uncertainty and we're just leaving a lot on the field. And so both Molly House and Arcs are games that ask players to say, look, we're going to play a game. You might get lucky and win, but let's play again and see what happens. Yep. And I think you have to be able to make that leap to really enjoy those games. And Molly House too, it really demands that players play a few times to get a sense of the shape of the game. If you play it once, it's a little bit like if you remember the first time you ever taught a trick-taking game. Yep. That first play will not teach you if the game is good or not. You're bewildered, right? So as always, your games, you have to study the game before playing it for the first time. Okay, you have to know how everyone plays, the way each player has to play. Well, I think that it's a lot of designers optimize for the first play, the first experience, which is important. But I, as a matter of policy, optimize for the third. I say, if you want to play one of these games, I need you to go to school a little bit and to play a few times, and then we can be playing the game together. Have you ever thought in designing a filler game, a normal trick-taking card game in 15 minutes? Or 2 to 6 players, for instance? I mostly design the sorts of games that I don't see exist. Right now, there are really excellent filler games. It's like, so I love train games. I love 18xx train games, but they're so good that feel like I have anything to contribute. And I feel the same way about trick takers. Like the Japanese game Schadenfreude, a brilliant trick taker, or Freeman Freese's Gone Fishing, or Fishing, I think it's just called.
Sí, sure.
A brilliant game. I don't need to work on that genre. Someone else is doing it much better than I would.
Mm-hmm. Will we see you with the green hair sooner later?
Yeah,
no?
maybe later.
I don't think so.
Blue.
Okay. Funny point. One of your forthcoming games is Molly House. You have another one called Axe. I could see it on Essen. What can you tell us about the Axe? Short, brief review.
Brief review. Arcs is a science fiction game that tries to tell science fiction style stories. So it is not a civilization game. That's the one. If I can communicate one thing to people about Arcs, I say this is a space game that doesn't care about discovering planets or researching technology. It cares about last minute evacuations, daring retreats, surprise attacks. It really is sort of deeply tied into the cinematic. That's the first thing about it. And the second thing about it is my favorite thing that happens in Arcs is we all get dealt our cards at the start of every chapter of the game, and everyone groans. Because the game only produces bad luck, and the players have to sort that bad luck and turn it into a great story.
So it's a plan for suffering.
Yes, a little bit.
Okay, love it. And two last questions. First of them, favorite game not designed by you? I got you again.
Well, I'll give you an old one and a new one. I adore this game from the early 80s called Titan. I think it's a brilliantly conceived war game. So it's fascinating just the way the numbers work and the probabilities work. I think it's an incredible design.
Jensen's, I think. Titans?
It's just called Titan. It's it's I can't remember the name of the designer. It's one of those games that doesn't have the designer on the cover. And then recently, I'm trying to think about a game that I've been really impressed with recently. I mean, we were talking about dinner last night. I've been playing a lot of Blood on the Clock Tower, which I think is a lovely game. I don't know if I'd call it a board game, but as a game, it's one of the most remarkable things I've seen.
Nothing to do with your games.
Nothing to do with
your games. Okay.
Yeah.
And designed by you?
If I had to try to get entry into some kind of club of game designers, if Renner Knizia was going to grade a game that I had made, I would give him Arcs, because I think as a game, it is the most interesting game I've worked on. It is the most strategic. Really? It has the most tactical depth, the most replayability as a game. If I had to play in a tournament, Arcs would be the only. I think it's a game that is truly. It lends itself to study. As a player, I love John Company.
Much better than Oath, much better than Root, much better.
I think so.
Oh my. I didn't expect that answer.
Yeah, sorry.
Alvaro was really nice with this. He agrees. So, that's all from my part. If you want to say anything else to my audience.
Well, I just thank you so much. I say to everybody for hosting me in Spain. It's been lovely. This has been a fantastic show.
We hope to see you here in Spain again in a short time.
Yeah, I hope so.
Thank you so much, Cole.
Right.
Y a vosotros ya sabéis, comentarios que queréis dejar, abajo en la cajita de comentarios, crítica constructiva, crítica destructiva, lo que os dé la real gana como siempre, que yo ya sabré cómo gestionarlo. Familia, nos vemos en el siguiente vídeo, nos vemos en el tablero. Chao.